This first panel is something I'm really looking forward to. I'm not going to sit in this chair, I don't think, because there are such capable musicians and thinkers here at the front of the stage who have a lot of experience to share on this topic. And I'll start by introducing Matt Hsu, who's leading the panel, and who will be able to introduce the rest of them. But Matt Hsu, I'm the Associate Supervisor of Matt Hsu's PhD, and he's been an absolute delight. It's a wonderful piece of scholarship on music, and he has a lot to offer in this area, both as a scholar and as a practicing musician. So if anybody wants to look up Matt's Obscure Orchestra on Facebook, you'll see the incredible music that he works on. And that work really shows, and his work really shows, how the relationship between research and creative practice in various intercultural contexts all comes together in a really convincing whole. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Matt, who will introduce the panel.
Thank you, Gavin. So yes, welcome to artists working on Australian-Asian collaborations. We've got with us today Tenzin Choegyal, we've got Ben Ely from Regurgitator, and LÂLKA. Cool. Okay, so I want to start with a little bit of it's a recent news story from last week, and there was a piece in the New York Times written by Kelly Marie Tran, who's the actress in the most recent Star Wars film, The Last Jedi. And she plays Rose Tico, who's in fact the first woman of colour to be a lead actor in any Star Wars film. And she was talking about the feeling of needing to erase her Asianness while growing up in America, as a way of sort of fitting in. And over time, sort of overcoming that and sort of really coming to grips with the fact that, hey, I'm proud to be Asian, living in America. But recently, and sort of quite, dare I say, racistly, her sort of proudness has been torn down by this sort of toxic fan culture, toxic fans of Star Wars. And I want to start off with asking LÂLKA, have you ever felt the need to, in your music practice, sort of, if not diminish, maybe suppress your Asianness to fit into sort of indie music?
Yeah, absolutely. I think not just in music, like in everyday life, you know, getting a job interview, for example. And I think I teach as well. I teach music, and just being really, I don't know whether it's because I'm Asian, I tend to pick up on some reservations some families might have towards me. I think it's just, yeah, I guess because what I create as an artist isn't considered, you know, world music, I kind of have to, I found that I didn't want to make my Asianness the focal point of my work. And in the past, when like I'll attend an event and someone finds out that I'm a musician, say someone gets talking to me, sometimes it's happened in the past where they immediately assume I make a certain type of music. So I guess like it's not something I do consciously, but I think many Asian artists kind of, especially those living in the Western world, are conditioned to kind of suppress their Asianness. And it's only been, you know, recently where, I mean, it's an area that I personally struggle with and I'm still in conflict with, because it's not black and white. There's so many years of conditioning, so many years of things that just happen that I'm still sorting out, so I don't have all the answers, but the short answer is yes, I have suppressed my Asianness, so to speak, yeah.
Tenzin, how do you feel about suppressing Asianness? Because you work in a sort of slightly different genre.
Actually, I'm Tenzin, good morning. I try not to suppress myself of who I am and my heritage, because like when you are actually innovating or experimenting, you have to also find who you are. So if you find who you are, your identity, then you'll be able to express more in any way, in any, then you'll be able to actually whatever you are creating, then if you embrace who you are, then I think you'll be able to express what needs to be. And then also, I'm very fortunate because we all have voices. That is, our own voice is very powerful, and we sometimes forget that. So I try to find somebody who has a very strong voice, and in their voice I try to find a little bit of myself, and then when I see that, then actually it empowers myself to tell my stories through my practice or the art that I'm. So in a very fortunate, unfortunate way, I have His Holiness the Dalai Lama to look up at, and every time I feel something of my identity crisis, I find his voice, and I find a little voice of myself in him. So that's how I actually try not to suppress myself.
Yeah. Great. Ben, you were reflecting once about how the Brisbane music scene of the 80s and the 90s. You recalled that, I think it was a 4ZZZ show, that there was some sort of skinheads or neo-Nazis at a show that QUT was playing at. Sort of sig-heiling him.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that sort of overt type of racism in the music scene has changed over the years?
I think it's improved dramatically, especially since the 80s and 90s. I mean, I remember going to Tasmania, and we would, run into racism really quite often in places like that. I don't really want to repeat any comments, but I mean, it was funny that day where, at that ZZZ market day where the skinheads jumped on stage and were zig-hailing QUT, but then some Maori guys jumped on stage and beat them up. So, things have a weird way of coming around, don't they?
Yeah.
But, but I feel Australia is a lot more progressive now, and I remember QUT and Martin would get quite excited if people of Asian heritage would come to the concert. They'd, oh my goodness! So it kind of happens a lot more these days.
Great. So that question about suppressing your Asianness, there's a flip side to that, which is, do you ever feel the pressure to lean into your Asianness, to sort of exoticize yourself, to set yourself apart, or to almost lean into that stereotype? As maybe in a photo shoot or any sort of media interaction, have you ever felt that pressure, LÂLKA?
I guess the only instance when I felt that pressure is when you're at a party or an event, and you meet strangers and you get talking, and then they immediately ask you about where you're from, or what kind. Oh, you're an Asian artist. Oh, you must create this sort of music. But I guess because I've got so much control over my work, and like photo shoots, I direct all my photo shoots and all that. So I guess no, I don't allow that to be the central focus. And so far the media hasn't asked me, I guess, about my Asian background. Not so much as me as a feminist. I probably get more of that. And I've been painted as a feminist artist, and it's just a label they chuck on me, and it's I've never called myself that, but it's just a label that they've just placed on me. So I guess we'll see. And I'm thinking it'll be a matter of time before someone brings that up. Anyway,
Sure. So there's, I guess, a fine line between. Well, first of all, Tenzin, I don't want to box you, but we were both nominated for a QUT Music Award, a Queensland Music Award, I think last year or the year before.
Yeah.
And we were both in the world music category.
Yeah.
And so, do you see yourself as a world musician?
World music. As soon as somebody asks, as soon as I say I'm an artist, they look at my face and go, oh, Tibetan traditional music.
That's what I mean. Like
You
they
know, like-
go, oh, you know, what country, what type of Thai music, and
Right.
like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
So that is inevitable because we human have this like inborn nature of labeling things, and we like as you said, boxing. So like even though I write my own music, I do a lot of experiment like what we have done.
Yeah.
Experimental music. But then a lot of the time, as soon as I say I'm Tibetan artist, they go, oh, you must play some traditional Tibetan songs from like 8th century ago or something. So I'm very much practicing the way I write. It's very contemporary in my own like lyrical sense or sounds. And then I do actually look into my heritage, lineage, and then find the essence of a sound that I can bring it forward to this contemporary age that we are living in. And so I don't mind people boxing me, like into I don't even know what world music is actually. It's just I think for some award show or like they like giving some award for some achievement.
Yeah.
So music is music. I love music from all genres, all parts of the world. So for me, sound is that actually sound has something very beautiful way of evoking emotions, and we all have emotions. And I like the best part about sound I like is it actually maps the emotions. When things arises. Say, if I listen to Ben's sound, it's like pumps me up sometimes. And like when you want to do something, it makes you do. And then sometimes when you want to relax, you want to, like all those emotions that, so I don't mind people boxing me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. So in the past 5 to 10 years, there's been a bunch of articles talking about how the indie music scene is just a lot of white dudes with guitars, sort of this white male sort of insularity. And within this panel, sort of, Ben, you're the minority here in a funny way.
It's fine.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this idea that indie music is like dominated by white men?
I don't know. I kind of feel like I listen to a lot of female artists though. So I mean, I think it depends on what you focus on, whether it's a new Courtney Barnett record or. But I mean, I think I'm drawn to a lot of the music that I've been, purchasing lately is female artists. So I mean, I don't really like a lot of indie guy guitar music. So I don't know if I can answer that.
Sure.
So, okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely nice to see a shift of women being more accepted and feeling more comfortable to be able and being more presented in the music industry these days. But I remember the 90s was very guy heavy. And I mean it still is. But I mean I think it's nice to see that it's shifting.
LÂLKA, how do you feel about carving out a space for as a woman and a person of colour in indie music?
Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
answering question.
Sure. So, how do you feel about the characterization of indie music being like dominated by white males, and for yourself carving out a space for not that?
Yeah, I think, like Ben said, it's really nice to see that shift happening, and people are getting, more aware, and they're starting to be more accepting. I mean, it's still guy heavy, but I see a lot of strong women and people of colour coming onto the scene and sort of taking pride in it. So I think we're definitely heading in the right direction, and it's something I'm excited about. yeah, I guess like for me, I was always really reluctant to actually collaborate when I first started, because I was really quite protective of my work and my vision, and I didn't want some white dude tell me what to do. It's only been recently where I felt comfortable enough and confident enough in myself to allow myself to collaborate with, white men, which I've done recently, but that's only been a recent thing where I had to sort of feel secure in myself first and kind of like carve out my own space before I allowed someone else to come in. Yeah, so that was my approach to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think we share a similar experience growing up where it's like, there's a stereotype, right, of Asian people living in Western countries in their profession, where it's either like this very white collar, you're a doctor or a lawyer, or on the flip side of that, sort of like this service industry, you're a cook or a cleaner. And often that stereotype perhaps comes from parents reinforcing this sort of like, be a doctor when you grow up, like make some money sort of thing. And I think I read an interview segment where you talked about like breaking away from that expectation, that parental expectation. Want to speak a bit about that?
Yeah, so my parents are very conservative, very traditional. They certainly wanted me to become a lawyer or a doctor, typical. And they were actually really, really disappointed when I decided to pursue a music career. And they don't really get it, even now. They kind of get it, but not really. Yeah, and it is something that I realised that if someone isn't fully involved in the music industry, they probably don't understand the little wins you have. Like, I could say, oh, this blog wrote about my music, and you'll be like, okay, someone wrote about my music, so what, I think, yeah, so I really, I see other women of colour, around Brisbane who are, taking, I guess, control and creating music as well. I think that's really cool. But yeah, there's definitely that stereotype of what you can do as an Asian woman of colour, and I guess especially in the type of music I create electronic music, it's very male dominated, especially in that genre. So I don't know. Does that kind of answer your question? I definitely broke away from that because I was determined to. It's what I love, so yeah, I had to fight a lot for that, personally. But
and like you said before, you retain a lot of control because you produce your own music. You often there's that assumption of like, oh, you're just the face of this project rather than the person behind the scenes.
Yeah, and it's who produced a beat for you? Like, I did.
Yeah. That's me.
Yeah.
Tenzin, you've worked with renowned American composer Philip Glass, who created the score for Martin Scorsese's Kundun. How did that collaboration come about?
About 10 years ago, probably. Very somehow, the unfortunate things can turn into positive things. So I came into exile as a child, and then never thought about actually making it into a music circle. But then ended up in Australia, and in Brisbane, there's a really beautiful community. I find it not competitive. We collaborate a lot.
That's great.
And so early 2000, I started doing those. And then one of the songs was on YouTube.
Wow, okay.
And so Philip's assistant saw that. And then he does this concert. He organizes these concerts in New York for Tibet. So he asked me to come and do one of the concerts, about 7 years ago. So since then, I became friends with him, and then as soon as when you become friends, you just start collaborating, and so that turned into collaboration. And so at the moment, I'm working on a project which will probably come out in 2020, with him and actor. It's a theatre show
Wow.
with live music. So yeah, so in that way, sometimes, you know, as I said in the beginning, unfortunate things turn into, you have to grab the opportunity and find that space and turn it into like turn it around to work it for you in a positive way. And at the same time, my main concern is actually when I write music, I tell story about myself. At the same time, a community that needs the story told. So about Tibet or the climate change that is happening in Tibet because of. So sometimes I, you know, unintentionally my song become like that. You know, because we say Tibet is roof of the world, and if the roof leaks, then there is like all this downstream.
Yeah.
So I sometimes write my songs in that metaphorical way of using the mountains or the rivers or the forest as a story to tell. So that's how I guess it triggered Philip. It was one of the songs was about a nomad song that he liked, which is actually a very traditional kind of sound, but in a very positive, in a very contemporary way. It was with the orchestra, so he liked it, and he asked me to come and join.
So cool. Great. Ben, your wife is Taiwanese.
Yeah.
And your kids are mixed race Asian.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess your musical partner of the past sort of decade or more, Quan, is of Asian descent. So in a sense, you're sort of deeply entrenched in sort of Asian collaboration in your life. How has that sort of affected your musical practices, if at all?
To be honest, I always liked hanging out with Quan because he didn't drink. Maybe he's just being a good boy. You know, he's just always well behaved. And he always had his shit together. So I like hanging out with someone like that who's got their shit together. And I love him in so many ways. I love because I find him an attractive guy. I find him a very creative guy, a hard worker. Yeah, and he's not drunk all the time. And it's hard to find a white guy in the music industry who isn't drunk all the time. That's why I like it. Oh yeah, we're like brothers now. We fight a lot, and we have our problems, but I do love him dearly. But it's I think that's the main thing with music. It's really nice to find someone that you can be a really good partner with. Yeah.
I feel
he's a good partner.
Yeah. It's insane because when I was about 12 years old, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be an astronaut like any other kid, I suppose. But then I saw Regurgitator's film clip for song formerly known as, where it's you guys sort of traveling around Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, that's an Asian guy rocking out. I can do that when I grow up.
Well, it's funny because for us, for Quan and Martin, we saw that the band The Hard-Ons with Rayan. That's quite an interesting band, and they copped a lot of difficulty, playing in hardcore punk world with an Indian drummer and a Korean bass player and a Serbian guitarist. But we kind of looked up to those guys, and we loved the visual art that Ray made and the songs that they made and the energy that you got from their shows. So I guess those guys kind of made it okay for Quan to do it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what inspired him.
Yeah, representation.
Yeah,
Matters,
nice.
Yeah, it does matter.
He's a bit of a pioneer though, right? He's really cool.
There's this stat that talks about when the Hunger Games films first came out, the first one, uptake of archery in America for young women, of girls in school, went up something like, I think 40% or something ridiculous. So yeah, representation does matter. Yeah. how are we doing for time? Because I've got a lot of questions I want to ask.
Another 5 or 10?
5, 10? Great.
Five probably.
So we're really lucky today because I feel like everyone we've got here on this panel is sort of quite innovative and groundbreaking in terms of like moving in the spaces in between genres rather than just squarely in the middle. There's this analogy that I always think about when I think about creative practice, which is the cook and the chef, where the cook sort of recreates or replicates recipes from pre-existing recipes and does it really well and they're delicious. But then the chef sort of creates things from scratch, innovates by combining pre-existing things to create something new. And I feel like I'm surrounded by, you know, chefs. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
I can't actually cook too.
me neither. Ben, you just released, you released a solo album last year,
Yeah.
and Regurgitator just released an album, I think, within the last couple of weeks called Head Rocks.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I really want to talk about one particular song called Weird Kind of Hard.
Oh, okay.
Where it's
I
a
believe
three-
we're talking about this in a music. Yeah, the song is pretty strange, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's a 3-minute song, and for something like the last 2 minutes of that song, it's just someone making the noises like.
It's called scat singing. Didn't you go to uni?
I was listening to it, and I was like, "Is this scat?" Because it sounds like.
Well, it's our drummer who's never sang before doing scat, but yeah.
So it seems like you really, like in all your albums, there's this sort of sense of creative freedom, but in this one, maybe especially, there was just like, there's no rules. Is that an accurate?
Oh well, I mean that just came about because we just like, well, you know, we're singers. We like sing. I like singing. I like making up songs. And if we're in the car, if I'm in the car, especially, I don't know why it's in the car. I do it with my children, driving them to school. Well, just make up songs and I'm driving along, and sing a song and make up a weird song. And we were on tour, and then our drummer said, "My life is a weird kind of hard." And then we just wrote this song in the car. We kind of were singing this song, Weird Kind of Hard, and then it turned out to be this little kind of biography of his life, and we went, "This is great. We got to put it on the record." But if you want to hear a really strange song, you could check it out. It's called Weird Kind of Hard, and it's this ridiculous song about his life.
I love it.
It sounds quite absurd.
Yeah. Please listen to it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I just spoke about how Regurgitator was a big influence on me growing up. LÂLKA, was there a group of people that sort of paved the way for you?
I guess mine's kind of different from yours.
Mhm.
I grew up classically trained, so since I was 5, so a lot of the music that I absorbed was from dead white European men. I mean, I love pop as well, but you know, growing up, a lot of it was I didn't see a lot of Asian representation, so you know, only recently when I guess with hip hop, the resurgence of hip hop becoming into the mainstream, you definitely see a lot more people of colour in the music industry. So I would say that I guess my main influences growing up were all white men, and I guess that still kind of like informs my practice now. You can never like discount what you grew up with, but I'm starting to search for more musicians of colour to, you know, to find music and hear their voices and hear their stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's just a personal experience.
Me and Tenzin, right here. Tenzin, we met in a ramen shop in Tara's Ramen
Yeah,
in the city, and you had no idea
You
who
know-
I was.
that's what I was telling you about. Brisbane is so.
It's so great for that, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, and yeah, you had no idea who I was. I recognised you from like going to Woodford most years of my life, and yeah, we started speaking about music, and I said, hey, maybe we could collaborate in this sort of fanboyish way, and you were just like, yeah, let's do it. So will you just work with anyone?
Yeah. Anyone. I guess I have to click, like, you can perceive when you see, you kind of can perceive what is coming towards you.
Mm.
So, like you won't walk into the street. If there is a car coming towards you, you would walk away.
Mhm.
So, you have to have that, what is instinctive thing. And when I met you, I thought you were good-hearted being and wanted to collaborate. And yeah, so. And a lot of the time it happens like that. I love going to Japan because like people. A lot of the time when you think about Japan, you think shamisen or like Japanese wearing. But there's a whole lot of Indian music. Like I met an amazing guy who had never went to Afghanistan, but he plays beautiful Afghani music and he sings it too. And yeah, collaborating with that. So when you think about these things, like the whole world, like if you open your, just like the horse racing, it will just go round and round. If you leave it open, then the horse will be able to see the mountains, the valley, the sky, and everything. So.
That's wonderful.
That's great. That's what I really love about Brisbane, actually, because I spent 8 years in Sydney and 8 years in Melbourne.
Mhm.
And one time I went around to a friend of mine's house, and I knew he was a drummer, and I just rocked up to his house, and I was used to Brisbane, just going over to people's houses and just playing. And in Sydney, I went to his house and he said, "Oh, we did write this meeting down in my diary," and he kind of turned me away into the street, and I was like, really heartbroken. Then I tried to jam with someone else, and he said, "Oh no, I don't jam with other people, I just play in my one band."
Right.
But I love Brisbane because I feel like the community is quite open. People are maybe friendly, or they just are open to lots of different collaborations with different ensemble kind of combinations and things. So I think that's really healthy. I think it is healthy, and it's better to see the mountains than run around in a circle, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and then when you say that, you're not lying, because I rocked up to your place with 20 instruments and you just put on Hot Pot and then we jammed.
That's right.
That's exactly what happened.
Hot Pot and jams.
All right. And I'd love to jam with you as well, LÂLKA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the time we have.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening.